this Member of Parliament, in his actions and what happened today, he actually believes that Leon Brittan should be named.
Well, yes, of course, because don't forget, Cyril Smith was at Elm Guesthouse. Special branch have confirmed he was at Elm Guesthouse.
Yeah.
And this MP in his book has confirmed this as well, that Cyril Smith was abusing young boys for decades and getting away with it.
Yeah, he was violent as well with them.
Very, very violent, alongside Harvey Proctor and Colin Jordan of the National Front, who all shared the same fascination with torture and whipping and all that S&M type behaviour with young boys.
Yeah.
So yes, he does believe he should be named. But obviously I think you've got to remember what happened. I mean, it's going back a bit, but I don't know people will remember Geoffrey Dickens MP. He named a senior member of the government back in the early 1980s in the House of Commons, and he got rounded upon by all parties, the leader of the parties, you know, senior MPs who criticised him and accused him of violating parliamentary privilege for his own personal agenda. But all Geoffrey Dickens wanted to do was to break the cover-ups that had been going on, in his own words, for decades, and this was in 1982, and we're now in 2014.
So this is a Member of Parliament who believes that Leon Brittan was a child abuser, and he's adamant on that.
Yes.
Whether it's up to the others whether they let him put this question.
Yeah, and obviously we've got to give him all the evidence that we've got to back up those accusations.
Yeah.
You know, the tricker tape.
But maybe he should have had all that before he wrote his book.
What he has done today, of course, for the first time, he actually heard the recording made by a national newspaper of that interview with Customs officer, who confirmed that the tape seized marked LB was Leon Brittan.
Right. So this is a tape. It wasn't a snuff movie.
No.
But it was a child porn film where Leon Brittan was in it having sexual relations with a kid.
To be accurate, the customs officer confirmed it was a child pornography tape. He confirmed that Leon Brittan was in it, although he didn't say what part, obviously.
But he said his name.
He said his name. What happens was, if you
and this is to the National Reporter that you've been working with.
If you listen to the tape, as I heard it today, you hear him say, the reporter asks him, was this an MP? And the customs officer goes, well, it was a member of, then the reporter says, of the cabinet, and then the customs officer says, yes, it was Leon Brittan.
This is a senior customs officer. But he said he couldn't say anything. He's not allowed
further because of the official secrets.
He had to sign the Official Secrets Act.
Yeah. I can talk to the MPs till the cows come home.
Yeah.
What needs to happen is the police, the Metropolitan Police, who are charged with this investigation, need to talk to the suspects.
Yeah. And
suspect number one in this is Sir Leon Brittan. They've got the customs officer on tape saying they saw him in an obscene film with children. That is, if that was you, Bill, or me, we'd have our collars felt and we'd be down the local nick so fast our feet wouldn't touch.
Never seen the light of day.
They haven't been near him. They have not had him in for questioning. And you have to ask the question, why?
Well, why, you answer that question.
It's a cover-up. It's known as the London tape. It first surfaced, or we first heard about it in 1990. It was made in 1987. But more importantly, in 1991, Detective Chief Superintendent Stoodley, who was running Operation Orchid, denied point blank the existence of snuff movies, as did Michael Hames, who was, I believe at that time, the commander in charge, as did the Commissioner. The official position of the Metropolitan Police was child snuff movies did not exist. Yet I know that in February 1991, 5 people were arrested by French police in Paris, and they were charged with possession of some extremely nasty child pornography, including a snuff movie of an 8-year-old boy. And that was called The London Tape. Now, it's called The London Tape because the boy featured in it is an 8-year-old boy from London. And that's where it got that name. And in the French newspapers, in reporting proceedings in the French court, the French police had given that tape to the Metropolitan Police. More importantly, the Metropolitan Police had identified the identity of the little boy in that. Yet they never made it public, there's never been an investigation, and you had the most senior officers at the Met saying child snuff movies don't exist.
Yeah.
They knew about that. Yeah. And if they want to deny it, I'll point out something further. In 1997, Thai police in a place called Pattaya, which is the paedophile capital of the world, as most people know, raided the home of a Belgian citizen who lived there and found an enormous amount of extreme child pornography. And included in that pornography was a video called The London Tape, which was exactly the same.
So there were copies of this tape?
It was a copy of this tape. Now, one last important thing, the newspaper reports reported that the Thai police had handed that video to the Metropolitan Police via Interpol. So again, you had 1991, 1997, the Metropolitan Police knew that British children were being killed for these snuff movies. Right. Yet they continued to deny officially that these things even exist.
Right, okay. Now, this snuff movie, The London Tape,
yeah.
Tell me, first of all, let me just tell the audience, this tape was condensed, edited into a couple of hours, into 2 hours, but the kid had gone through the torture, and what Chris is going to tell you about in a minute, for 8 hours. An 8-year-old boy, 8 hours this boy was tortured for to make this snuff movie to be sold to these people. What happened to the kid in the movie?
A little bit of just how it got to happen, the trafficking, because we're back to the trafficking. We identified back in 1990, we knew that this little boy had been smuggled into Holland by Russell Tricker. He'd been sold by Tricker to Warren Spinks. I think everybody knows who Warren Spinks is.
Mm. Well, tell me.
He's a major international trafficker, paedophile. He ran brothels in Amsterdam where kids as young as 4 were provided for the perverts. When things became too hot for him a few years ago, he's run off to Prague, where he's now waiting to be under an international arrest warrant brought back to the UK. Mm. Now,
so Prague is a safe haven for them?
At the moment, yeah, not for much longer, hopefully. Okay. But Warwick Spinks then sold into a very well-known international paedophile who was a joint British-Swiss national called Beat Meyer.
This is the kid he sold?
This is the kid he sold, and it's Meyer who murdered this boy. The film was actually made in Switzerland. It's a proper, it's not the handheld dodgy camera one.
It was a professionally set
film, which is why it's the holy grail, so to speak, for paedophiles who like snuff movies.
So that's what I was saying. It was the top of the tree for snuff movies, the real blockbuster. This film.
Yeah, and I hate to say it. I mean, it just sounds so callous when you say it, but it's got to be said. That it's full of things like slow-mo action replays of various things, including rape. He was cut up with a knife, he had his testicles removed.
When you say he was cut up with a knife, what was they doing with a knife?
Well, they cut his nipples off.
Both his nipples?
Both his nipples off, they cut his genitals off, they horrifically mutilated him.
Was this kid sort of semi-drugged or anything, or was he...
No, apparently he wasn't. He was screaming, they wanted to hear the screams. And as far as I can make out, it ended up with the final shot was a picture of the boy's head in a bucket of water. They decapitated him. And the Metropolitan Police knew this. This was an English boy. And they did nothing. They knew his identity, and they did nothing, Bill. it just shows you the level of trafficking we're going on, how many other kids like this were trafficked out of the country with the full knowledge of the Metropolitan Police and the Customs, who knew exactly what people like Tricker and Spinks and the others were doing for decades, not just for a few months, for decades.
Let me just say, those of you that could do this, get you a picture of your child, one of your 8-year-old children or younger, and in your mind put them in that scenario. You won't be able to get into that scenario. You won't even be able to get into it. This kid was tortured for 8 hours. They was cutting his nipples up, they was slashing him. You can imagine the pressure points and things that, whatever they was doing,
and repeatedly raping him,
to this young soul, just at the beginning of life.
Yeah.
Just at the beginning of life. Because me personally, I think if you kill a child, then that is far worse than killing an adult, because the child you have stolen all those years, at least the adult has had something,
60,
you know what I mean? Nothing, I don't believe in killing anything actually, you know what I mean? But
a child it is, because at 8 years old, he would have normally expected to live to what, 70, 80?
Yeah.
Barring accidents, they just took his life from him. And it was worth, his life was worth whatever they paid for the film.
Yeah.
You know, it had, we think of our children as being priceless, don't we? We think,
yeah, of course they are.
And which they are to us.
Yeah.
But the reality is, in that sick world, they're worth, well, we know, Russell Tricker got paid 400 quid for a boy, 10-year-old boy, delivered in Amsterdam. So that's the price of a child's life, Bill, 400 quid.
You're angry today, ain't you? I've never seen Christie's angry.
It's just, you have some expectation. I mean, you go up to the Old Bailey, it's the hypocrisy makes me bloody ashamed to be English.
Well, look where you went today.
Yeah, but if I'd walked down the road, past the Strand, gone up to the Old Bailey, what's emblazoned above the Old Bailey? Defend the children of the poor.
Absolutely.
How much defending has been done for the last, 30, 40 years by the Metropolitan Police?
Let me just jump in, because there's been a couple of good results for victims and survivors. Max Clifford, he's just got 8 count. He had was it 8, 9, 10, 11 counts against him. One was a 14, 15-year-old girl, so under the age of consent, so that makes him a paedophile. And he's been found guilty on 8 charges, 2 charges not guilty, 1 charge the jury couldn't make their mind up.
Yeah.
Now he's coming back on Friday, and they're going to sentence him on Friday. So let's hope that they give him the sentence that he should have had a long time ago, and not mess with the law.
It's a good day for victims, mate.
Well, and there's another thing that we're going to end this interview now, because I just wanted to do a quick one with Chris. Also, it's come out today, just the day after Max Clifford, that I have seen anyway, that Simon Cowell is dumping Max Clifford because he is appalled at what Max Clifford done. Well, I think you should have thought about that, Simon Cowell, before you bailed out Jonathan King. And Jonathan King, I believe, will be going back to prison. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But Simon Cowell, you bailed out Jonathan King. Jonathan King introduced you to Max Clifford. You put an apology in a newspaper article about 4 years ago, I believe, saying that if I'd have known he was guilty, I would not have bailed him. So did you know that he was innocent? Even though the police were investigating him, and as we hear from the dodgy Nick Clegg this morning, it is now a police investigation, and the only people that can get a proper result on this are the police.